Long before people settled in the United States, before logging projects, before slavery, before industrialized farming and agriculture, before colonialism, before the urban sprawl and city planning, before humans, there were wetlands. Wetlands once spanned the conterminous United States. They were particularly significant in coastal states, such as California. This provokes the question, what are wetlands? Wetlands are areas where water covers the soil either seasonally or permanently. Though they are naturally widespread, human-generated or anthropogenic activity has caused severe complications for wetlands. Some states have seen a minor to moderate reduction in wetland habitats due to human infrastructure, but others have had their wetland habitats completely decimated. A good example of this is California. This state has seen a 90% reduction in wetland habitats. Compared to its pre-colonial era, many of California's naturally occurring wetlands have been changed by humans to meet the needs of society. Only a fraction of what was is still alive today. Wetlands are a native component of California's ecosystem. They act as a natural water purification system for our watershed, absorb energy during storms and floods, and act as a habitat and nursery for wildlife, fish, and shellfish. They are some of California's most highly productive ecosystems. Wetlands also help act as a buffer between humanity and climate change because they are very effective carbon sinks, and they sequester high amounts of carbon dioxide, meaning they are good at absorbing carbon dioxide from our atmosphere and storing it. So now that the area wetlands cover has been dramatically reduced, what's changed? Without wetlands, California's ecosystem has been heavily altered statewide, with coastal areas taking a harder hit. One particular coastal area that has been significantly more affected is the San Francisco Bay Area. Though the bay may look healthy and normal from above and to people who live there, it naturally looks very different from the concrete jungle we have created. This is because the bay has seen a 90% reduction in wetland habitats. Humans have contributed to a reduction in wetland habitats in several different ways. Mainly, it has and continues to occur through hydroelectric operations, pollution, and vegetation damage. These three issues can be broken down into specific problems. Hydraulic operations include projects that have disrupted the natural flow of water on land or underground. Namely, it includes the alteration of water quality, quantity, and flow rate to wetlands. Wetlands in the San Francisco Bay Area were altered primarily through diking, draining, and damming of free-flowing water in California. In the 1800s, when people first settled in California, wetlands began to be diked and drained, and levees were built to protect the newly colonized land from being flooded. In the 1850s, during the gold rush, hydraulic mining began. Massive amounts of mining debris and byproduct were poured into rivers and bays, which directly affected the flow of salt and fresh water into wetlands. This process, along with diking, draining, damming, and leveeing, continued for over 100 years until the California Central Valley Project was implemented in 1993. It began with the damming of the Sacramento River, which drains directly into San Francisco Bay. It aimed to reduce flood risk and supply water to urbanized areas of California. Here, President John F. Kennedy speaks about the project and its proposed benefits.
We can irrigate crops on the fertile plains of the Sacramento Valley and supply water also for municipal and industrial use to the cities to the south. And while running their course, these waters will generate millions of kilowatt of energy and help expand the economy of the fastest growing state in the nation.
Though it initially boosted the economy and continues to provide drinking water and irrigation, it redirected flooding to smaller towns, Native American villages, and historical sites. It also dramatically reduced salmon populations. Because wetlands rely on seasonal flooding to maintain themselves, the project single-handedly destroyed 4 million acres of wetland habitat. The next two anthropogenically generated issues, pollution and vegetation damage, were facilitated by hydroelectric operations. Pollution typically consists of human-generated inputs of environmentally hazardous materials. This can include urban and agricultural runoff, air pollution from cars, factories, and power plants, and pollution from marinas, where boats increase turbidity and release more pollutants. Wetlands in San Francisco Bay are primarily affected by urban and agricultural runoff. Vegetation in wetlands is degraded by pollution and hydrogeologic operations, but it is made worse when non-native plants are introduced and when native plants are disturbed. Because non-native plants are free from natural predators, parasites, or competitors, they are able to outcompete native plants in wetland habitats. Native plants are disturbed through the introduction of grazing animals and through the removal of vegetation for peat mining. After being degraded through these processes, wetlands are unable to provide water quality protection, act as a habitat or nursery for fish and wildlife, store floodwater during storms or sea level rise, or act as a buffer against our warming climate. Recently, the destruction of wetlands has also harmed our economy. Recreation like fishing, hunting, and wildlife watching generates more than $22 billion annually. Humans have also indirectly contributed to wetland destruction by facilitating climate change. The most noticeable byproduct of our warming climate is rising sea levels. As the coastline creeps further onto land, brackish or semi-salty wetland habitats are being transformed into saline environments. Plants and animals which have historically lived in wetlands are adapted to live in brackish environments. As wetlands become more saline, native plants and animals are struggling to live there. The warming climate has also resulted in fewer snowpacks and less snowmelt during the spring and summer months, which means there is less water flowing into wetlands during the dry season. Here you can see the reduced snowpack on Mount Shasta, which begins the Sacramento River that feeds directly into the San Francisco Bay. The combination of little freshwater input from rivers and excessive saltwater flooding from the ocean has reduced the productivity and effectiveness of the remaining wetlands in San Francisco. Because of these downsides to wetland destruction, there are several organizations trying to restore wetlands to the San Francisco Bay. The first founded, longest-running, and most influential organization that is actively restoring wetlands to the San Francisco Bay Area is called Save the Bay. Save the Bay is the first organization established with the intent of restoring native wetland habitats to the San Francisco Bay. The organization's founders, volunteers, and employees have devoted time, effort, and funding to restoring the coast of California near San Francisco. The founding belief of this grassroots organization is that a mobilized community has the power to reverse anthropogenically generated issues that have caused the decimation of the San Francisco Bay and restore the natural environment. The reason this organization is so important is because it was established before the environment was officially protected. Long before people knew about the ecological significance of the San Francisco Bay, before the Clean Water Act or the Environmental Protection Agency, even before the term environmentalist existed, the founders of the San Francisco Bay Save the Bay organization were fighting to protect it. Save the Bay was co-founded by Sylvia McLaughlin, Esther Gulick, and Kay Kerr. Together, these three women fought valiantly to end the destruction of the bay. They initiated the San Francisco Bay Plan, the San Francisco Bay Conservation and Development Act, and launched the modern grassroots environmental movement in the Bay Area. In 2021, Save the Bay celebrated its 60th year running. Currently, members of the organization are working to save the Bay by restoring wetlands through hands-on restoration projects, adapting the Bay Area region to be resilient to rising sea levels, advancing environmental justice and equity, and through educational outreach programs directed towards members of Bay Area communities. Here, co-founder Sylvia McLaughlin discusses the purpose of Save the Bay.
Save the Bay takes out canoes. There's Canoes and Sloughs program, and they take teenagers and teachers and so on to teach them about the Bay and have a hands-on experience with the Bay. And then also there are many groups now that are restoring the marshes, restoring the wetlands, restoring the creeks. And this is almost another movement, the restoration of the Bay. And it involves many more people. And I think it's felt that if people are involved in that way, they will become, particularly if they're young people now, they will be the voters of tomorrow, and they will be the stewards for the maintenance of the Bay.
Save the Bay has won big victories for the health of the San Francisco Bay because individuals and communities are passionate enough to get involved. The threats faced by environmental organizations and the Bay now lie far beyond any single entity. The only hope we have to restore the wetlands of San Francisco Bay is through communal mobilization. Together, we can restore wetlands, buffer humanity from climate change, absorb energy from storms, perpetuate wildlife populations, and restore California's ecological balance.